G'day, welcome to the elective space of awesome. Thanks for tuning into this elective. We've titled this one, United Against Sin. And so we want to think through how do we fight against sin? What role does community play in fighting against sin? What role do we play in fighting against sin? That's where we're going to go for the next 25 minutes, half hour. And so the way this elective is going to work is that I'm going to pose some questions. I'd love for you to pause the video and discuss in your groups. And I think at different points in time, I'm going to suggest maybe you split up into pairs or into triplets to discuss, as I think that's going to be more beneficial. And I have two top tips for this elective. And the first one is to be practical. I think it can be really easy to think up here, really heady about think really intellectually about things that we can do. But I'd really love for you to think kind of a lot lower. How can we actually, be fighting against sin? What are things that we can be putting into place? What are things that actually we're going to be putting into place to fight against sin? That's my top tip, number one. And my second one is to be open. It can be a really difficult topic to talk about with people, and particularly people that you don't trust. And so, particularly in that space where I'm going to suggest you split up to pairs or triplets, pick people that you really trust. I think that's going to be really beneficial. I think it's really going to help as you kind of think through both how you can be fighting against sin for yourself, but also how you can be helping one another to fight against sin. So the first question I'd love for you guys to discuss as a group is, why do we fight against sin? Well, I hope that was a helpful opening discussion. Why do we fight against sin? And I have a couple different thoughts why we fight against sin. Firstly, it's the thing that we've been set free from. So why would you go back to living in it? It's the thing that brought us death. Why keep chasing after it? Secondly, we've been told to fight against sin. We've been told to put off the old self and to put on the new. It's a command. Keep fighting against sin and the sinful nature. We've also been given the Spirit. See, actually, it's possible for us to keep fighting against sin. If you're a Christian, God has given you His Spirit as a guarantee of your inheritance. And so He's actually given us the ability to keep fighting sin and to desire to put sin to death. And if you stop fighting, it will consume you. 1 Peter puts it that the devil is around like a lion looking for someone to devour. And really that is what sin is going to do to you if you let it. And so keep fighting. And lastly, it's that if you truly believe that Jesus is the Lord, that He died on the cross for you, that He rose again, that should urge you. If He is the Lord, if He is the person that you look to and that you live for, you aren't going to keep living for the things that you wanted to before. Actually, you're going to live for Jesus, and part of that is to keep thinking through how you can become more like Him as the day approaches when He returns. Now, I do want to say that it's really important that we keep fighting against sin, but also it is a fight that you are going to keep having. See, either it is a fight you're going to keep having for the next 70 to 80 years, for however long you are left on this earth, or if Jesus returns in that time. But that is the amount of time that you're going to keep having this fight. Because these sinful bodies, they still love sin. Paul feels that in Romans chapter 7. He says, I've been set free. I have completely died to that old self, but yet I still see the sin in my body. And it's really true that although we've completely put that to death, these bodies are still sinful and they still desire it. And so it's really important that we do keep urging, pushing, fighting, because it's not until these bodies are gone that we have our new bodies that we will truly see the glorious riches that we will completely love and serve Jesus. Now the next two questions, these are really the spaces where I want you guys to get practical and to get personal. And so the next question I want you to think through, and as I said, I think this is really a space to start splitting up into pairs or into triplets with people that you trust, is I want you to start discussing how can you fight against sin as an individual. And so I'd love if you to think through maybe something that you've been struggling with recently or that you know that you struggle with, and to start thinking through ways that you can be putting this sin to death. Maybe think through, how do you know when you're going to struggle with these particular things? What are the things that you are struggling with? What are practical ways that you can keep pushing and keep struggling against that sin to put it to death? Well, I hope that was helpful. Thinking through how the things in your life that you're struggling with and the practical ways that you can be putting it to death as you keep looking to when Jesus is going to return. But like I said at the start, this elective is also going to be about thinking through what community plays, what role community plays into fighting against sin. And so the next thing I'd love you guys to discuss is how can you be helping one another put to death sin? And I'd love you guys to think through it in a couple of different spaces. And I'd like you to think through them as concentric circles. You see, you have salt. That's a pretty large, concentric circle. And then you might go in one more concentric circle, and you might have your year group. How can you be helping one another in your year group to be putting to death sin? And then I'd love you to think through, how about those people that you are closest to, those 2 or 3 people that you really trust? How can you be helping one another to put to death sin? How can you be united against the sin with one another? So I'd love you to think again about that. Again, to think practically, think personally, be open, because that's really going to help to really, get to the bottom, really dig out some diamonds of how you can be fighting against sin to help one another and to help yourself. Again, I really hope that was helpful. I hope you guys were able to spend a good amount of time thinking through these questions. I'd love to share something that I've been doing with a friend. This friend and I, we've known each other for quite a while, since we started SALT when I was in year 6, so that's quite a while ago. It's got to be almost over 10 years ago. And so I really good friends with him. I've known him for a long time. I trust him. And so we meet up the first Monday of every month, and we just talk. We discuss how one another's lives are going. We discuss, how's the last month been? What are the things that have been like highs of the months? What have been lows? And we also just discuss, what are the things that you've been struggling with this month? And we keep that discussion going. Hey, you were struggling with, this last month. How's that been this month? And that's been really good. It's been really helpful, having that regular, set time, knowing that I'm going to meet up with this friend. And I see him all the time, but having this really intentional time to discuss and to talk and to just open up with one another, that's been really helpful. I've really loved that. And so maybe you guys could think through someone that you trust that you could do that with. But I hope this elective's been helpful. And I hope it's really been able to start a conversation for you guys. This, like I said, this is a war that's going to be going on for, a little while for you. And so it's, this really isn't the end of a discussion, but a start. I would really love if you keep thinking through practically how you are going to be fighting against sin and helping one another fight against sin. And don't be discouraged when you fail. The lovely truth of Ephesians is that we're saved by grace. And it's nothing that I have done or you have done for that you are saved. You're not any more saved or less saved. Rather, you have been completely saved for what Jesus did on the cross. And although we still fall short, God sees Jesus and he calls us righteous if we have faith in him and if we call him the Lord. And so please take heart in that. Please, I really hope that that is the truth that you trust and that you continue to hold on to as you keep fighting, as you keep living in this world where the war wages on. Now, I might wrap us up in prayer, but again, please don't let this be the end of a conversation. Let it be the start. But let's wrap up in prayer, and maybe you guys would like to pray after in your little pairs as well. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for Jesus. I thank you that although we are wretched sinners, that you have saved us. On the cross, you have paid the penalty for our sin, and in Jesus' resurrection, you have shown that our bodies are going to also be resurrected, and that when Jesus returns, we will no longer have sinful, broken bodies, but that you will give us new bodies that can truly love and serve you. And we look forward to that day, Lord. Keep us having our hearts set on the things above, not on the things of this earth, not looking to honor ourselves, but to rather honor you, and keep looking to be more and more like Jesus. Amen. Alrighty guys, I hope you have an awesome rest of awesome.